Okay, we're now on OPEX Sustain, and let's face it, this is the big daddy. This is the base support really for allowing you to express so many different things. It's the base support that's going to allow you to express pain, should you wish to do it, a couple of times throughout the year. It's a base support that's going to allow you not only to express gain somewhat effectively, but for you to recover between the expression of all the gains that you do. And if you have this, capability in place on the bike, remember that essentially we are put together to be able to do a number of things with lots of repetitions over a period of time, right? And that's exactly what the characteristic that's involved inside of Sustain. Lots of repetitions, because this in itself, OPEX Sustain, especially on the bike, is largely a skill phenomenon. It's a skill that you have to get really good at. And you have to be able to bring some patience and layer that on top of skill when you're putting it inside of this program. So I'm trying to drum up these ideas, the ways you can think about the differences in feelings of each one of them. And now when we described gain, it was just all out madness. When we talked about pain, it was that struggle to figure out how we're going to pace. And with Sustain, it's patience and repetition and deep practice. So we have to create that tone as we start to the description of trying to get really good at sustainable things on the bike, because you have to know what's going to go inside of what you remember, the intention of why we're doing what we're doing. So we have this real, good understanding that we're capable of doing things for a long period of time. We have a good understanding that we need to do this for reps and volume. We have an understanding that we need to have a lot of patience involved when we do the sustain practices, and then it's fairly easy just to put it into practice. So a couple of the differences that I'll get to that I want to highlight right away, though, is that the practice of sustain training for this can go on forever. That's the enlightening, really positive thing around the assault bike practice, is that there's some longer recovery periods needed between maximal expression and gain, and longer recovery periods needed between painful experiences. As you know, it's got to be timely and dosed appropriately. But with sustain activities, this thing could go on forever, meaning that the practice of it and you improving pace and you improving your aerobic ability, it almost has no end. And I'll just leave it at that. So it can be practiced for a long period of time, for years and years to come. So it can give you some really, exciting moments to come in terms of how much time you can put inside of this, because there's lots to gain in the improvements when you see how it's laid out. Some of the aspects of, you could ask the questions, well, why would we do sustainable activities? Especially for the bike, there's some limitations we talked about specifically for work. That could be positive in terms of the repetitions and practice of it. Just think of it for the lower body in general. So for individuals looking to improve lower body muscle endurance or lower body sustainability of reps, assuming mechanics are perfect each time, you're going to get lots of reps in order to be able to do that. So that's a very positive thing around why you could be doing sustain. But there are other indirect things that you could, add on in terms of why you're doing sustainable activities. The primary one as to why you're doing it, though, is to learn how to be sustainable. So when you say, well, why should we do sustain? If your immediate instinct is, well, it burns fat based upon heart rate and it increases left ventricle hypertrophy, and it has mitochondrial biogenesis capabilities, capillary density, and you go through the list of all these physiological phenomena that sound really cool. It's possible that it may add to some of those things, but the main reason why you're doing it is to learn how to be as aerobic as possible. And that in itself will not only take you to really great levels in terms of your expression on the bike, but as a great characteristic to have for your training forever. Okay? So there's this global reasoning behind sustainability that's super important that we want you to remember. That's exactly why you're doing it. We, of course, talked about the test, the 10-minute max cals. That is the test to determine what we're going to be calling your ability to do a test for sustain. And some standards that we want you to think about is body weight in pounds, cals in 10 minutes. If you're 125 pounds, 125 cals in 10 minutes would be a great standard. You're 196 pounds, 196 cals in 10 minutes, great standard. You're 223 pounds, 223 cals in 10 minutes be a great standard. Or is that a perfect score? No, it's not. But it would be close to what I would believe perfect for you for maximal sustainable expression. Just like we talked about the max wattage, 10 times body weight, right, for the max wattage score you'd like to see. Just like we talked about optimal expression of pain, right, 50% of your body weight scored in cals in 3 minutes. For sustain, it's 100% body weight cals in 10 minutes. I'm 172 pounds as today. 172 cals in 10 minutes for me would be something I'm looking for. Again, to review why this is important before we talk about the intervention and then retesting and why you should look at that and control it, is that you get to see, as a reminder, some people may be phenomenal in terms of OPEX gain and expressing really high amount of power. And then they may see that they score pretty darn good and somewhat close to the 3-minute score, but then they see that they're not even close to that relative score in the 10-minute test, right? So that should highlight what we're calling metabolic balance. For that individual, just based upon how they're scoring in those 3 areas at that current time, they probably want to focus a lot more on sustain as opposed to the other 2. You now have another individual who comes really close to their body weight in cals in 10 minutes on the sustain test. And then they do the 3-minute test and they're really far away from that. And they do the gain test and they're really far away from that. So now you can see that what goes into that person being rounded in the assault bike for energy system training is probably a lot more strength, which is going to improve gain, which is going to infiltrate and help improve pain. Okay? So this is the reason why we want to know about testing and why it's important, because it at least gives us something to go on to say, okay, I know there's gain, I know there's pain, no sustain. Why should we do them? Well, great question. You got to test them. And that will dictate where you sit on the curve, right? And then you tie that into your goals and how you sit on the curve. That should tell you where you should be starting, okay? So test it. Have an intervention in place, which I'm going to talk about, a really simple 8-week system that could get you to an area that you're going to improve your pacing as well as your total sustainable practice on the assault bike. So you're going to create that training practice and then retest. I give you an 8-week block format, which we go with, I'll describe in more detail, but 10 minutes on, 10 minutes off, 7 minutes on, 7 minutes off 3 times, 4 minutes on, 4 minutes off 5 times, and then 1 minute off 16 times. That improves pace, and it allows you to improve your overall characteristics of sustainability at a faster pace throughout the program. I'm going to recommend it's an 8-week block. If that's the case, you're going to test. You're going to do an 8-week block of training, which I've outlined here, make it really simple to follow, and then you're going to retest. You can do each of these 2 to 3 times per week for 2 weeks. So let's just say on the minimum, you're going to do 10 and 10 twice a week for 2 weeks, right? 4 sessions. Or the maximum, you're going to do 10 and 10 3 times a week for 2 weeks, 6 on the maximum. So it's up to you based upon function and volume. And when you move through this, as you can understand, what you're seeing inside of here, if you want to dig a little deeper, is the primary progressive model of endurance training, which is you move from slower pace training towards faster pace training, but it's always repeatable and sustainable activities. I'll repeat it. The model of progression in endurance training is slower method work towards faster method of work. All repeatable, okay? So when people get caught up there, they're like, oh, when you get faster, it must be like gut busting, falling over, and flopping to the ground. No, it's all repeatable activities still, okay? So when I do 10 and then I do another 10, they're the same score. When I do 7, 7, 7, they're the same score. It's the same thing we talked about previously. If they don't repeat, then you didn't complete the session. Then the 3 days down the line or 2 days down the line when you do it again, you have to create repeatable work in each of those minutes. So the work dictates the dose response, right? Remember, intent, modality, and the person dictates what you're doing inside. Not how you feel, oh, that was really hard, or my heart rate was here, is this what I scored? No, your scores based upon what you finished in each of these times largely dictates the progression. So the overriding theme in those blocks and is where we're going in progression is we're kind of going like this. This is the 10-minute pace, right? This is the 10-minute interval. And then the 7 is kind of like this. And then the 4 is kind of like this. And then the 1 is like this. So as an example, this could be a 61 RPM average for 10 minutes, okay, on the assault bike. For those users, you'll understand that. If you haven't used it before, you'll see it when you start to practice it. This could be a 63 RPM average. This could be a 65 RPM average. This could be a 67 RPM average. Do you see that? The pace is faster, but you're still repeating the same work each time. So if I do a 67 RPM average, I'm doing it for 16 total sets of 1 minute on and 1 minute off. Right? 1 minute on of work, 67 RPM, 1 minute off of complete rest, just sitting on the bike, lightly moving, etc. Repeat over and over and over. Use the timer, use the metrics, make sure you can do it when you progress that. What am I going to do after the 16 sets of 1 and 1? I'm going to retest my 10-minute test, right? And now I get to see exactly the intervention of training and the improvement of pace and what it played a role in improving not only that test, but indirectly probably your overall sustainability. So I'll recap. Test the 10-minute, do the 8 weeks of training, retest to see what happened on the intervention. When you train this effectively, every time you do this over and over every 8 weeks, the only thing you're probably going to change is the pace inside of each of these intervals when you come back and do it. So just think about that. If I took a couple weeks off in the year, and they're going to be really clear in my math here, you could be doing this 5 to 6 times in a year. 5 blocks of this, or even maybe 6 blocks of this throughout the year. Right? So you're going to get lots of repetition and format of it. And believe me, it won't get boring. It'll constantly be a great challenge for you because you can add other things on top of that. Okay? So do 10 minutes on, rest 10 minutes, do 10 minutes on. They have to be the same score. If they're not the same score, that's not a completed workout. You need to wait another couple of days, 2 to 3 days, do the same work again. Try it. 10 minutes on, rest 10 minutes, repeat the other second 10 minutes, the same score. Excellent. Progress. Do you know how you progress? You do it for 2 weeks and try to become as best as possible with the work that you're doing in the 10 minutes, right? And be really efficient at it. When you move to 7, you're obviously increasing pace when you do it. So the consequences of what happens in here that could be for people that are really fast adapters, you may get through the first week and recognize that you're easily capable of repeating 3 7s. Remember back to the 63 RPM example? Then what you do on the second week, you try 64. Right? Because you still have to do 3 7s that are repeatable work, but you've just increased the pace inside of it. Why? Because you're repeatable in all of your actions. So repeatable work dictates if you can progress and if you want to progress. You don't need to. Some people could still get benefits. This is why it's called such a skill training. Just imagine this. You're at 63 RPM for the first week for 777 and you knock it out of the park. And you kill it, right? It's like, great, excellent. You could do that same workout 2 other times that week and then 3 times the next week, all at 63 RPM. And everyone's brain would be like, well, why would you just do the same work each time? Because cardiorespiratory activity is a skill. So there's nothing wrong with being really good at the same pace for a long period of time. It builds upon a base support because guess what's going to happen next? You have to move to a faster repetition format in an aerobic context, and guess what you're going to need as a base support in order to do that? Great reps and great skill, okay? That's why it's largely a skill component, and how you move in that direction should be, in our language, from endurance to power over an 8-week format. Lastly, the effort is what we call 90%. And what we call 90%, it's 90% of someone's best aerobic capability in that interval. Right? So think about this, and I need to describe this clearly because it's different than gain or pain because we're extended out. Remember the power time curve and the variability between like 12 minutes and 60 minutes? It's minimal, right? So when you do a 10-minute hard aerobic one, right, you could describe it like that. We're not doing your best 10-minute aerobic test. You're going to be doing 90% of that 10-minute aerobic best, right? So it's, let's call it sub-maximal aerobic training. Even if you did maximal aerobic training, it's still sustainable. But the difference in context, when you do maximal aerobic training, you're almost flirting with your capabilities. You're almost flirting with red line. When you do 90% training like this, you're below flirting. So it should be comfortable. It should be challenging, but it should be comfortable. Do you see the difference in that? Because it's sustainable practice. And this is where people get a little bit messed up in their training. They're barely capable of making like the second 7 minutes. that means you're flirting with red line and you're honestly suffering. And that's why I love this kind of concept, because you'll get to the second week of training for 7-7 and you won't be able to complete it because you're just going too hard. So that's why I love the concept of the work-rest ratio and that dictating if you're actually doing the proper work. So think of it in context as a perception. It's 90% of the best aerobic thing you can do in that interval. And that's how you determine effort. Progression of it, I've already said, we go from endurance to power in the 8-week block. It's a pretty simple setup. Test, train it, come back and retest and see if there's an impact on that. Okay? So to recap, that's OPEX Sustain. You're doing it to become as aerobic as possible. Period. That's it. That's what your goal is. Don't add on all these other things that you think are going to be beneficial. Why is it important, though, based upon that? Because you get to practice patience. You get to get a lot of reps in place. And it will allow you to recover faster between gain and pain when you wish to do that inside the training program. And of course, don't forget to get some truth in it based upon what would be a great standard, a gold standard based upon body weight calories in 10 minutes in pounds. Test it, train it, retest it, and then ensure you're following as suit in regards to the total work. Yeah, one last thing I forgot to mention, just so you know what these numbers are. This is the total work that's done in each session. Just think about that, right? 10 and 10, that's 20 minutes. 3 7s is 21. 5 4s is 20, and 16 1s is 16. Just to give you a concept of the total work that's done in each session for those of you who want to put it into a training program, know how much time you got at the end of the training program to kind of fit it in. And also it gives you a concept in terms of overall volume for those of you who are super interested in what is the functional volume needed. Because as we talked about previously, we have these set up so that people can interject it inside of their training program so you can effectively use the assault bike for OPEX Sustain.